Welcome to episode 14 of the Chi-Town Shoot Wrestling Podcast. And joining me in the Square Circle are the entire team. We got Chris, we got David, we got Andres back in the Squared Circle today for our latest episode. We're coming at you from the heart of the wrestling world, Chicago, Illinois, bringing you the latest news, hottest takes, and all things WWE and AEW. Don't forget, we want to hear from you. Send us your thoughts, your questions, and your wildest predictions to chitownshootpodcast@gmail.com. We'll tackle your comments in the Chi-Town Shoot mailbag. Without further ado, let's jump into it. And before we jump into it, let's just kind of talk about how our month's been, because for those of you who haven't listened this past week or this past month, I was reviewing the Who Killed WCW series for the month of, basically June and a bit of July. And now we're back together again. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Cool.
Good, cool. You guys are got a month. You give me a word. Cool.
Yeah, we went to Dynamite. We went to. Was there a SmackDown or some shit?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. Since then, yeah, I went to SmackDown. They had it all state, and if you guys are following our social media, we posted both the SmackDown event when we were there and all AEW Beach Break / Shark Week, brought to you by Discovery event, and that happened a couple weeks ago. Was it 2 weeks ago? Something like that.
Yeah,
that was really good. What did you guys think of that Dynamite show in person?
That was a good Dynamite.
What about like the crowd and stuff? Did you guys feel like it was as hot as you hoped it would still be since the last AEW event we went to?
I think the first one we went to was hotter.
Was that?
But I think it was better than the Collision. Out of the three we've been to, that wasn't better than the first time.
Yeah.
But it was better than Collision.
I think the CM Punk pop was still pretty big. I mean, it was slightly less. It was at United Center, so it was slightly louder just based on pure number of people. And it was also cool to say that we were at the inaugural Collision show, but
we were Colliders.
Yeah. I mean, I thought this past week's show was, when we were there for the Beach Break event, I thought it was pretty good. I said this after, but it kind of takes the wind out of your sails when they also include the Rampage recording. And I know they would probably never have that as its own show going on the road, so they have to, tack it on to Dynamite. But yeah, that just kind of takes the wind out of your sails, because like half the or at least that's what it felt like. But Dynamite was good.
I think it's on the crowd for leaving.
That too. I mean, it's on the crowd for leaving, and I feel like, with an AEW fan base, I feel like they're generally more hardcore than like a WWE fan base. So I
thought they'd
be more informed, or they just don't care. Yeah, maybe they just don't care.
Well, I mean, it was like 11 by that point on. Or closer to like 11?
It was like 10.
Like 10:30.
On the 10 o'clock 30.
Still better than trying to get home from a Raw.
Yeah. That's fair. But I do prefer driving to Allstate. I hate leaving it, but Allstate's much closer than, because then you got to go through that Chicago highway traffic, and then you're just bottlenecked for like 45 minutes.
And we got stuck in the 3rd of July.
Right, exactly. So you got holiday traffic, you got, wrestler and people coming off work and everything in between. But honestly, Chicago traffic, when you head down that way, it's always going to be like that. So
the worst.
But yeah, it was good.
Here's a question.
Fun. Yeah.
How much crossover do you think there is between a WWE like fan and a AEW fan at an AEW show? Like, what do you think is the percentage of like, this is just purely I only watch AEW versus like I watch all wrestling?
I think most are WWE fans who also watch AEW, but I don't think there are like, if I wanted to say a percentage of people who only watched AEW, I think it's like 10-15% who are just AEW. I feel like a lot of it is crossover.
I was gonna say too. I'm kind of the same boat. I think most fans who were there watched both shows, but 10%, maybe even less than that, were like diehard AEW, especially even by this point.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Those AEW diehards hate WWE pretty hard.
Well, they are loud, but I still think it's like 15%.
I think it's like terminally online wrestling fans. Because I mean, like when we tune into, an Instagram or a Twitter, it's like these people are literally online. And then the memes too, like here's your AEW fan stereotype or whatever. But I feel it's just unfair. I believe it's unfair because I feel like if you're an AEW fan, you're most likely just generally a wrestling fan. So you're watching WWE. And a lot of other products.
That's how good WWE's been. It would be a shame to just deprive yourself of another good show,
Yeah. And I think that's partially why, if we talk about like viewership and that kind of stuff, AEW originally came at a time when WWE was at its absolute lowest in terms of just quality and across the board. And AEW took advantage of that. But now that WWE's product has improved significantly since 2019, I think a lot of people have shifted back, and you kind of see that in the ratings where Dynamite its average used to be like 860, 870, and it hover around that, little lower, and now its average has been around like 690, 700, like every Dynamite. So I don't know. That's not great that your numbers are lower year over year, but what you gonna do? But we're talking about AEW, so we can dive into our first segment of the podcast, and that is maybe the shot in the arm they might need for AEW. And this is reported from Fightful Select. They talked about this in the past. It's like the past couple of months, and people have talked about like, oh, Shane McMahon maybe get go into AEW, and people are like, you know what, let's just accept and embrace chaos, and that'd be an interesting thing for the product. And Tony Khan recently had a follow-up comment on this specific story, and he mentioned that he's open to talk to Shane McMahon, and he's welcome to quote unquote stop by. So during an episode in June of Grilling JR, which has Conrad Thompson and Jim Ross, they discussed the possibility of Shane McMahon appearing in AEW, and they suggested that it might not be as crazy as some folks believe. Tony Khan addressed this topic on Maggie and Perloff when asked about the chances of Shane joining AEW. Tony Khan said, and I quote, "Shane McMahon is somebody that I've never met, but he has a lot of experience in wrestling and a lot of friends in AEW. I have never really had any conversations with him or talked to him ever. I know he ran into Mercedes Moné after Forbidden Door, which is a cool coincidence. I have never met him. I'd be open to talking to him, and he's welcome to stop by at any time. I know that's an interesting rumor. There have been all kinds of interesting people in wrestling to come into AEW and walk through that Forbidden Door. This might be, if it ever happens, or shocking ones. Even though I've never talked to him, he seems like a really nice guy," Tony Khan said. And Shane McMahon has not appeared. For those of you who might have forgotten, he was at WrestleMania 39 last, where I think he was doing a segment with Snoop Dogg. And there was this whole run-in where he did like a jumping split, and then I think did he tear both quads? He had a leg injury. I know that, but I'm pretty sure he also
quad.
Yeah. So he had a leg injury after landing awkwardly when he tried to do a leapfrog against The Miz, and then basically he was out of WWE since. But we're talking about AEW and what things can they do, to maintain interest or increase interest. How do you guys feel about the possibility of a McMahon in AEW?
Bring him in.
I mean,
Bring him in.
for the sake of entertainment, I think it'd be obviously very interesting if they did that. But then, depending who you're talking to and how the general audience would perceive that, like when when WCW brought in Shane McMahon, that was like the end times for WCW. It was the imagery, right? Like, oh, he bought out WCW or whatever against Vince McMahon and WWF at the time. So I don't know. I mean, I think honestly, it'd be very interesting. So I mean, I would say that I think Shane in a wrestling fan's eye, there's no really wrongdoing because him and Stephanie, I guess, are more innocent in the sense besides having the last name shared. But yeah, I mean, it would for sure be interesting to see that.
I mean,
Yeah.
you mentioned like the WCW like end of times thing. That given was a storyline, and they already purchased WCW at that point. So seeing him on TV was already in the end times because they've already bought it. I don't think. I mean, if if Shane McMahon appears on TV like out of nowhere, everyone would already know that WC or AEW would have been bought out by Shane McMahon or whatever. But Shane, I don't think has any real ties to WWE at this point.
Nope.
Does he?
Nope.
Yeah. So that would like, and also WWE is owned by Endeavor. I don't think Tony Khan is up, like considering like getting bought out by WWE anytime soon, especially when he was also talking about recently that his conversations with Warner Brothers and that whole conglomerate, those conversations have been pretty good, and he feels like he got a great deal. But you know what else he's going to say? He's not going to come out and say, "I got a crappy deal," and they're paying me, donut for our streaming deal. So I think Shane McMahon, if he appeared, it'd be interesting from a chaotic storyline perspective. But I wonder how much he'd be involved with from the business perspective. Andres, do you have any thoughts about a Shane McMahon appearance in AEW? Because apparently this is the second time that it's been brought up in news stories, so maybe there's something to it.
I mean, yeah, like there'd definitely be some significance to it completely. I mean, I'm pretty much on board with everyone else. Like, why not? Like you said, it might
Bring
be a
him
shot.
in.
Bring him in. Yeah, bring him in. Let's see what value he can bring to the company. I mean, he's pretty much born and raised into that industry, so he definitely can have a lot of good insight and stuff too. And I don't know how much like creative pull he'd have or what he would actually do, but regardless, I'd be very intrigued to see what he would have involvement wise for AEW.
Well, here's a question. I mean, what was his involvement when he was in WWE? Like, was he part of creative? Was he just more in the managerial side of things? Like, what was his
He did a lot of
involvement?
things, because I heard like when he was a kid, he was doing like the ring stuff, and then he started doing a little bit of writing here and there. And then as he got older, then he got more invested with being in front of the camera too.
Yeah, I mean, he had many
He's
hats.
big on production.
Yeah.
A lot of it was production.
Yeah, I mean, he was on-screen talent first, so the whole alliance corporate stuff, and then he
Before
basically was going into behind-the-scenes stuff for a little bit. He left in like 2008 or 9, and then basically he was doing his own stuff. I think he had that whole venture. Was it Alibaba? I don't remember. There was like a specific like e-commerce company that he was working with. So he did that for a long time before reappearing on WWE TV around 2016 or so.
Mhm.
And that's when he became the commissioner of SmackDown, and they had that whole
Best in the world.
return of the brand extension for a little bit. And then, yeah, exactly. That whole, best in the world was like 2018, 2019. So that was like when it was peak dog shit WWE. And that's fortunately when I wasn't watching. And then he was doing part-time appearances during the 2020s. And then hence where we are with I mean, like he became a producer for WWE, and then he had his issues during the Royal Rumble, and then he had his issues with Vince, but I don't think anything has come from that since then. So at this point he's not really tied to WWE. But I mean, from a business standpoint, he has been in other business ventures. He's obviously grown up in the wrestling business, so he knows WWE from the inside out. You know, he knows his father. He's been on and off screen from behind the scenes and in front of the camera. So I think he'd be an interesting addition to AEW. I don't think there is one magic bullet or one person who can turn over everything. I mean, you know, otherwise all these people that Tony Khan signed, you know, would have like, you know, had a big ratings boom, but that obviously didn't happen. So I think there's more that would be necessary for AEW to get some kind of boost in momentum or, you know, perception from a general audience than the addition of Shane McMahon. I think it'd be an interesting. I think they would get a boost from it, kind of like how they did with like the Jack Perry CM Punk footage, but even that was a minor bump in the ratings.
Well, here's a question.
Yeah.
Would he be an on-screen character or would he be behind the scenes?
I think on screen would be funny.
AEW champ.
Yeah, make him, you know,
Oh,
make
God.
him AEW champ and have him come out with like a do-rag.
Oh my god.
Best in the
That's some
world.
Vince Russo writing?
Yeah, if that started happening, I would be
I'm
like,
writing a television show.
the
Yeah, we'll
end
get to that
is
shit.
coming. But yeah, I mean, we talked about like all these signings that happened. I think Shane McMahon would be interesting. They had recently. We also saw that Stephanie Vaquer, who was she was CMLL, right? And
Yeah.
she was in New Japan at the same time, and then she was in AEW. Was she actually signed on to AEW?
No,
I don't think she was.
There. She was there through her other jobs.
Yeah,
So she was just
CMLL, New Japan.
basically Forbidden Door, like New Japan cross stuff. So talent that kind of occasionally appeared for a brief stint, right? And then she left. I'm not quite sure. David, maybe you know better why she left. People were making comments like, "Oh, she thought like AEW was a shit show," but I also feel like that's just like people who were just trying to come up with a reason to shit on AEW, and they just kind of put that narrative in there. But I'm not exactly sure why
Nobody knows.
Stephanie left. But yeah, now she's in WWE. She had all the championships. She didn't win the TBS championship from Mercedes. And then she lost her Strong Women's Championship to Mercedes. That might have been, I mean, that's probably what she already knew she was leaving the other two companies. So that's probably why they did that. But yeah, she's in WWE now. Shawn Michaels, who is currently WWE Senior Vice President of Talent Development Creative and head booker of WWE's developmental brand NXT, he announced via X or Twitter, whatever you want to call that, Stephanie officially signed with the company, and she made her debut at a live event in Mexico City yesterday, actually, where she defeated Isladon. And then she announced that she'd be joining the NXT brand, which should be exciting. I don't know if she needs the NXT brand, but honestly, that I could say the same for like people like Shinsuke Nakamura and all those kind of people. I feel like having some time in NXT to just kind of adjust or understand what the WWE way of working is, I think is helpful for anybody, regardless of how long you've been a wrestler or in the indies or whatever. What do you guys feel about Stephanie's presence on NXT? And do you feel like she can be a big star in WWE?
Yeah,
She would. She would need a mouthpiece. She would need some kind of a Paul Heyman or some type, because like, I mean, she doesn't really speak good English. I mean, ring wise, like from a like performance standpoint, she's fucking awesome. But from a like we're talking WWE superstar, good on the microphone type shit, that'd be very tough for her. So they'd have to work something out of that, or maybe make her mute. You know what I mean? Somehow like create more of a physical aura about her versus like, you know, like having her cut a bunch of promos and stuff. Because then like all the mystique dies down once she opens her mouth. You know what I mean?
That's not necessarily true because if you look at the Japanese wrestlers like Shinsuke or Io, they have recorded segments that
That's
had
true.
subtitles over it, so they could easily do that with her. I mean, I guess if you're looking from like a live event perspective, if she's like in the ring with somebody else, I mean, it's like she doesn't speak any English at all.
Well, yeah.
And nor do I think like that should bar somebody from becoming a champion. Like, look at Io Sky; she was women's champion. I mean, giving people give them crap for things like that, where they feel like the English is kind of like a missing component for them to be like a bigger star in WWE. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think as a star, like I think Shinsuke is a star. I think Io Sky is a star. So I don't think she would have any problem reaching those levels. I don't know if she'll ever be like, you know, a Trish Stratus or, you know, someone like that. But who am I to say? I don't know. I would have to first see her stuff in the ring and what she does in WWE. And we're going to see. And she'll be, I wonder how long she's going to stay in NXT. And I know that you in the, so that'll be definitely something I'll be watching more because I don't have cable. But yeah, so that'll be interesting to watch. Yeah, any other thoughts about Miss Vaquer? Anyone else who you've so I know we said in WWE we had this new signing. Do you feel like there are signings for AEW that, you know, that AEW needs, or do you feel like their roster's stacked enough as it is? Wasn't there some kind of promo recently on AEW or something for that promo video? Did you see the one? He's like running through like a port.
You're kind of cutting off. I don't know if it's on my end, but you're cutting off sometimes.
I hear, yeah, Mark's kind of cutting out a little bit.
I'm cutting off.
Yeah. Are you pulling on your head? Are you pulling on your headphones whenever you sit back like that?
No, I mean it's not pulling on anything.
Yeah, because you lose your connection.
Probably your noise gate thing. Probably too high at some point.
Because I'm like moving away from it.
Yeah.
How about now?
You're fine now.
Okay, so maybe it's because I was farther away. But so I was saying we're talking about the signings for AEW and they get Neva Care. So I was wondering for AEW, do you feel like there are signings that they should have in order to make it more, I don't know, give them more of a boost, or do you feel like the current roster is sufficient enough, you know, to maintain interest and increase interest in AEW?
I think there's plenty of talent in AEW. I think it's just a matter of direction. Because like the whole roster is talented, I would say, more or less. But like even if they have a raw talent, they just need specific direction so it all makes sense, right? Because you can pull back somebody like a Will Ospreay and not have him do all the crazy flippy shit. He just needs to be told those specific things, and I think that's what's kind of lacking. I feel it's like one of those things where, you know, when they're putting matches together, even if they could be like bangers or whatever, but sometimes it's just like, you know, certain different things can happen on the TV part, and maybe they can save a lot of that stuff for like a pay-per-view or something like that, because it's a television show, bro.
Yeah.
So
television.
I mean, it's true, but yeah, that's why the Shane McMahon thing would be very interesting. Maybe he would be more of that creative director type. Besides, like he would take some of what Tony Khan is essentially doing, and then maybe, you know, reel some shit in versus like being like a super mark, like fucking Tony Khan. So
yeah, I don't really know the aspect of like who's free to be signed to AEW, like free agent wise, but like I do feel like the roster is very talented, but it just, you know, it comes down to the storytelling too. Like obviously the wrestling's one thing, because even back when WWE was like bad, that era, like you were saying, you stopped watching, like they still had a really good roster of wrestlers still, but it was just the quality of the show, the storytelling, the writing wasn't really all there. So, you know, that's where it comes down to.
I agree. I mean, they AEW, like he literally had like a 1, 2, 3 punch with like the Mercedes signing, the Okada signing, and the Osprey signing. I feel like Osprey has been the biggest, made the biggest impression on AEW and on fans in three. I feel like Okada is kind of there. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
maybe you guys disagree with me, but for me it feels like he's just kind of another guy versus like that New Japan, you know, all-star wrestler who's at the top of the ticket. You know what I mean? Like it seems like he kind of got relegated to like it feels like a henchman, and maybe that's just my perception, but I don't know how you guys feel like an Okada or even Mercedes currently. I think Mercedes is much better now as a heel, honestly. When they did that, I think that helped her
Mhm.
considerably in
Agreed.
terms of, the energy from the crowd and the perception of her. People want to boo her, and that's what they gave her, gave them.
Do you
But what do you
think
guys feel about Okada?
do you think if AEW did better on vignettes and little things like that before Okada came, it would have done him a little better? Because I mean, he does have a belt.
Yeah.
It is a mid card belt, so I hear you there. He's kind of turned into a one liner that just yells "bitch."
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That perception.
Yeah.
I think
Bitch.
it's the booking. It's the
Yeah.
booking because if you look at like the presentation of it, like I feel if I'll be honest, I feel like a lot of people W probably haven't watched a lot of Okada matches before he debuted, and they kind of just said that they have. But I feel like that aura was there. Like they had the aura. So when they brought him into AEW, I was expecting. I mean, the elite thing was good, but the execution just wasn't there. It wasn't where I thought it would be heading. And I feel like with the current elite storyline, it's like there's a lot of like starts and stops. Like sometimes it feels like the stakes are high, but then it just feels like it's more of a background thing instead of an overarching issue that threads through every
Yeah.
single storyline on AEW. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
It doesn't feel like NWO versus WCW. It does.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It
It
just feels
feels
like a
like
side story.
a feud with somebody that they're dealing with, and they're occasionally having authority. Like they're supposed to have all this authority power, but then you have all these people who can kind of intervene. You know what I mean? Like it's just messy from my perspective. But I do like the elite as like a team and as a faction, but it's not giving the gravitas that I think it should when remember like think about how that kind of kept like kicked off or it kind of turned into a boil when they took Tony Khan and pile drived him, and then they had that whole event like that was kind of like, ooh, this is interesting, but then it kind of like fizzled out. Like
Right.
there wasn't more. It didn't keep building off of it, you know. So that's what I'm talking about. Like that feeling that I can't exactly describe. It's like that start and stop thing where I'm like, oh, never mind, not it's not happening. So yeah, I think to reel it back in, I don't know if signings are necessarily something that can save AEW because they have the three. I think it's just the booking and yeah, it's just the booking and the producing of the talents, the pacing. Something's missing that isn't necessarily hitting.
I think
But
I think with the
people feel it.
I think with the elite stuff, like if they were like kind of like interrupting like the whole show more or less, like maybe there would be like some kind of a change, like just really just like overuse their power for stuff, like do some weird thing with the lights
Right.
or just some kind of a change the direction of something, and then like
Right.
have that just like as them being the imposing control
Yeah.
mechanism or whatever.
Because if they're the elite, this is all elite wrestling, and their storyline is like in a vacuum. It's like it's not affecting just like maybe one or two specific people or groups, and then it doesn't touch the rest of the product. And I don't think with a storyline like that it should be like that. And I feel like a lot of folks hoped that it would be different too, but I don't know. We shall see.
Shane McMahon at All In, baby.
Exactly. Make him part of the elite. That
Yeah.
He's gonna show up as part of
be
Team
good.
AEW at
I'd
Blood
be
and
okay with
Guts.
that.
Yeah, we'll see. That'll be interesting. But yeah, I guess that's enough of the AEW talk. We kept kind of touching about TV shows, bro, and Vince Russo and comparisons to WCW. But now we can get into who killed WCW. And I wanted to bring this back to recap with you guys because I wanted your perspective and to bounce off ideas and comments with you guys instead of just talking to myself in the ether and just kind of going over the segment. So we basically can start here. I think Who Killed WCW had, for the folks who haven't watched the other episodes, I recorded 2 this past month. The first episode 12 was covering 1 and 2, and then episode 13 was covering 3 and 4. And it basically covered the entire history of WCW in a bite-sized way. It's not necessarily giving you every single detail that happens. If you want to have the full story, the WCW book I think it's just called Nitro, that is about like 600 pages long, and it goes into a lot of detail about the booking, the business decisions, a lot of like details about the advertisers and like issues with wrestlers. They had like scans of wrestlers' contracts and all that kind of stuff. That was it's very interesting stuff, and I'm almost done with the book. I've been reading it in my backyard.
Oh, you own this book?
I own it as an ebook. I have it on my Kindle.
I'm gonna go to the library and rent it.
Yeah, I mean it's a really good book. If you are a wrestling like history buff or really like just learning about wrestling history, I think it's absolutely a must read. And they released a 2021 version. The original one came, I think, like 2018 or something like that. The 2021 version is expanded and has additional details and chapters. So that's the one I have. And yeah, really good book. But Who Killed WCW? I don't think we want to go episode. Open it up to you guys about the series in general. What did you guys get out of it? You know what? Let me start with that question, and I'll have you guys all answer it. I'll do round robin. I'll start with you, David. Who killed WCW?
The network.
The network.
Network. Because no matter what they did, do good or bad, they hated on it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you want it to die, let it die as ugly as fucking possible.
Yeah. What about you, Andres? Who do you think killed WCW?
I agree with the network thing, but like I gotta say, probably like everybody's ego did. There's just so much in-house disagreements and stuff like that, and there was a lot of good wrestling talent that was just not getting, the spots they should have gotten. Contract deals and stuff like that, moving around like that. So I'd say it was like everyone had a good portion of that, especially the talent, especially the like the Hogans and the Nashes and stuff. But it's just funny because WCW has been gone for so long, and there's been other documentaries on it too. Like even WWE has produced their own other, like, I remember like seeing like their own DVDs about like the end of Nitro or the end of WCW as a whole, and it's a lot of stuff like there wasn't like necessarily a lot of newer stuff that came out, but it was interesting to see them all kind of come together and talk about it. But it's just like, it was just funny seeing like some of them all blame each other.
Yes.
Like, oh, he did that. No, I didn't do that.
And they just kind of let them like hang themselves, like they gave the rope and let them hang them their responses. And they shot it with like, this person thought it was this, and the other person was, like Kevin Nash was talking about the finger poke of doom and that kind of stuff. And I feel like there were a lot of what about it, certain segments of these episodes. But we talked about Vince Russo. Chris, who do you think killed WCW, and why is it Vince Russo?
Dwayne Johnson killed WCW.
Yeah, we got a whole bunch of memes too out of this documentary, because now you have the screenshot of Dwayne Johnson basically creating, the Constitution of the United States, to killing WCW, creating Thunder.
I think honestly, Hulk Hogan is the double-edged sword, where they were doing fucking amazing because they brought him in and they started an NWO, but he was also the motherfucker that was like, well, this shit ain't gonna work at this point. I need to be champion. I need to do this, this, and that. And that specific creative control. I guess you could even throw Eric Bischoff in there, because like, whatever, like we'll put it in the contract, like you're immune, you have creative control over your character. So but I would say it's mostly Hulk Hogan, because I feel like if it went specific directions, I think the network would still see some kind of a value in it, even if they don't like wrestling. But like, if it was like, man, everybody loves this shit, like obviously if the numbers are speaking, then they're gonna keep it. So yeah, I would say fucking Hulk Hogan, that piece of shit.
Well, okay, so no one interestingly mentioned Vince Russo, but do you guys feel
like
like
him too?
But I feel a hand in the downfall of WCW.
It's like a butterfly effect. I feel like maybe they wouldn't even need Vince Russo to come in if the direction up until that point was like kicking WWF's ass, because that once it started to whatever year that was, 97, 98, whenever Sting, I guess, did he become champion? I think he became champion, and then he lost it, I think, on Nitro, right? I think from that specific moment when stuff started to just kind of go off the rails, I think that's the main issue. And then I don't think they would ever have to bring in Vince Russo, because they were like, all right, what can we do to ramp it up again? And they're like, oh, Vince Russo. So butterfly effect. I think if Hulk Hogan wasn't a piece of shit and he just did what he needed to do, and then Eric was in full control of what NWO was and what WCW was, or Nitro was, I think it would have been in a better position. But
yeah, I mean, I do think it is death of a thousand cuts when it comes to WCW's downfall. I think I'll agree with you, David, though. I think primarily the issue was the networks and the executives, and they just didn't like wrestling from the get-go. In the shows, they talked about this, and in the book, they make a big point about the perception of wrestling as lowbrow, people who are low earning, uneducated, just country bumpkins who watch, wrestling. And the only person who is kind of defending WCW and is Ted Turner, who's in charge of, that specific company. And then, the merger happened and he basically became a figurehead and they pushed him to the side. So that perception of that wrestling isn't great for our product, it stuck around that entire era in those years. So once they had that reason to kick it off, that's what they did. So I do think that a lot of it was the executive's fault, and the hesitancy about like making it a more risque product, because Vince McMahon did not have to follow any of those kind of strict orders, because USA Network was totally down as long as their ratings were going up. But with WCW and them being under that TBS, TNT, the Warner, AOL umbrella, they felt like they had to bring it back to a family product in 1998 and 99, when it was like peak Jerry Springer Attitude Era. And they saw that the ratings were going up, but their logic was, they would rather have, instead of a 5.1 rating and minimal advertisers, they'd rather have like a 2.1. And, a whole bunch of advertisers who would want to, put their product on during commercial breaks. So I think that was a big issue. But again, I think it is death of a thousand cuts. You had all those wrestlers, guaranteed contracts, not giving a shit, and creative control. I feel like people now, I mean, Mercedes has creative control. I'm sure John Cena and people like The Rock and all those, it's not like they're just going to be like, oh, here's a script, sir, and then just go out and do this. I'm sure they all have their say when it comes to their stories. But yeah, I don't know. I think that is part of it. But yeah, what any other thoughts? So what do you think about Vince Russo and booking? Do you feel like he was ever a good writer or storyteller? Do you feel like it was mainly Vince McMahon and Vince Russo was kind of
I think
I don't
he
know.
just had all the right pieces in WWE for the green light that he had, because it's
Yeah.
just like how hard is it to write for Stone Cold when he's literally Stone Cold, and you just have to be like, hey, Steve, tonight drink beer, then stun, and then drink more beer.
Yeah.
And like, or even like DX, like, oh, hey, what's your guys' plan tonight? Okay, cool. Make sure you guys moon somebody. Sweet.
Put your
Yep.
dick out. No.
I'm a genius. Like,
He wasn't writing Shakespeare.
we're writing television, bro.
Television show, bro. Yeah.
I mean, he also had that Vince McMahon filter too.
yeah. So I mean,
And
I mean, he
And
had
wasn't,
to
The
answer
Rock?
him.
The Rock's like right hand man was part of that writing team, wasn't he?
He was, well, I don't know if he was his right hand man at the time, but he was writing The Rock's lines and stuff. Brian Gewirtz.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
he was
like, he
writing
was
for
on the team.
SmackDown, and then he was writing for Raw, and then he was head writer for a bit. And then he left in 2012, and then after he left, he was still The Rock's writer in a number of shows like Young Rock. He's basically kind of been at the hip ever since. And now when he's back in WWE, they have him as a writer who's collaborating with everyone else when it comes to The Rock. So, I mean, it feels like a similar evolved idea to what Hulk Hogan had as his, creative control. It's just executed differently. And I think the personality, like is also wanting to elevate the talent. And I think it's also in part because he's a board member, so it's also a product that he wants to see succeed. It's not necessarily, I just want to have the belt and, be on top, because I don't think that's his mindset at all. I mean, he's in top matches because how can you not be? You're the Rock, but it's not like I have to keep winning every single time, or look completely dominant. But yeah, I think it's just a different animal. So I'm not completely opposed to creative control and those guaranteed contracts and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it helped with the egos that were there during the 90s.
Especially when you look at
Scott Hall and Kevin Nash.
Like Hulk Hogan being the guy. I mean, that was the top 80s wrestler. He had movies, he had all these things. I mean, it came down to personality. And then with that, all the business that came with that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we've talked about this before, like with WCW. Do you see any parallel in WCW when it comes to the product or how they run the business or, talent interactions? Do you feel like there's any kind of parallels to each other?
You said with AEW because you cut off?
With AEW, yeah.
Okay. I mean, like apart from kind of being the second show to WWE at this point. I mean, there's some similarity. I mean, you could definitely look at some parallels, decisions that are made, certain stories that are being parallels, but I think you could say that the NWO thing has been done across many platforms, many wrestling shows. I mean, yeah, I guess you can make some parallels there.
Yeah. You
I'm
were
sorry, I
saying.
can see some, but not too many, luckily.
Yeah.
But but I think maybe in some ways, like, because obviously we're aware of what happened there, so they're probably looking to not like obviously go the same route with a lot of things. But I'm sure there's still some parallels, but nothing too concerning.
Mm-hmm. And what did you guys think? So let's move on to that last episode of Who Killed WCW. And we see in the episode the never before seen footage of the last show of Nitro, where it was outside. It was in Panama City, I think. That was the city that was WCW in, and that's where Shane McMahon showed up on television with the simulcast with Monday Night Raw. What did you guys think of that, like, never before seen footage? And I talked about this in our previous episode of corporate espionage being tossed around when they were talking about selling WCW, because there was a specific point within the episodes about WCW being sold to Fusion Media, and Eric Bischoff was talking about how he wanted to sell this brand to another company at a point while it still has some value. So that entire discussion about selling it to this company, and they were going to basically start a new, like, basically reboot WCW, and they were going to have was it called the Big Bang, was the pay-per-view. They were going to have all of that was basically lined up, and then somewhere along the line that basically fell through, and they said that it wasn't happening, and then WWF at the time sold the product, or WWF bought WCW for basically chump change in their entire library, and all the talents that wanted to come over. Any thoughts about that? When they were talking to the executives and the episode in general?
It's crazy, like how important the TV deal was back then.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it was interesting seeing the camera people and then even the talent themselves when they were being recorded. It's honestly also wild that it's like footage that no one has ever seen before, and it kind of feels like it just happened because no one has seen it before. It's like, I don't know, finding a $5 bill in your mattress or something. I don't know. When it comes to like seeing like these different angles show that you've seen hundreds of times in WWE's framework, but it's camera people, it's producers. There were also some wrestlers in the background talking, and folks weren't necessarily sure what was going to happen. But yeah, it was a very like sobering and just kind of like an interesting view.
Yeah, I felt like I was having my
Yeah.
last day too. Like I was like, shit, man, Vince is coming.
Yeah.
Like, damn, he's gonna be here tomorrow, huh?
No, it was really cool though to see, because I actually was in Miami when that episode aired. So I think I was like, I don't know how far away, but I remember like watching the crossover and not knowing like that was a thing. Because obviously they might, if something were to happen like that, we probably would know a little bit. Everything leaking now, but yeah, no, it was cool seeing that footage. Because I do remember that show very vividly because it was such a big moment as a wrestling fan. But yeah, no, it was cool. I actually enjoyed seeing that. Like, cause I always actually wondered that too. I'm like seeing the ins and outs behind the scenes of that specific day too, because especially when you find out word of who was coming too. I was like, oh shit, like that's cool to see.
Yeah. So basically, WCW got purchased by WWE, marks the end of an era. Lots of the top stars from WCW were absorbed by WWE, and then we had that whole Invasion storyline. What did you guys think about the Invasion storyline? And I didn't really see it when it originally aired. When I got back into wrestling, I watched, they talked about it a lot. Sorry.
I watched
yeah.
the entirety of that. I was actually like actively watching wrestling during that time. Well, being a kid, I still enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, obviously, you didn't have like the A-listers, then you had the dream matches that we were hoping to get.
Right.
Like obviously the actual NWO versus DX in its prime, not 20 years later when they're all like very old and stuff. And but the inclusion of having like the kids in the McMahon family like going against their dad, that actually helped a lot, despite them not having all those AAA listers in their side for WCW. Like I actually watched like, what was it? The final pay-per-view, which was like if they won, they actually were going to take over WWE. I forgot what it was called.
I think it was just called Invasion.
Was it called Invasion? Okay.
Invasion.
So yeah, like I remember like that. And Paul Heyman was part of it too. He was
Survivor Series is where the winner take it all.
Oh, Survivor Series. Okay. Yeah, and then they had ECW involvement too. I mean, I think it really helped a lot elevate that, considering what it could have been. No, it was a good time. I actually like I said, the big guys were not part of it, but still for what they did with it, I think they still did a very good job telling the story of it. Having the kids involved, having Paul Heyman part of it, ECW's involvement, it was good. It's good to see Chuck Palumbo part of
that. Chuck Palumbo, Booker T.
Booker T was good on that.
Booker T was the best acquirement from WCW, bar none.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was funny because I actually kind of low-key expected Jericho to betray them too, because he was already in WWE before. But for some reason I was like, oh, maybe he'll go back to that side. I don't know why, but I just felt like he would have.
Right.
Because he was not there super long yet,
Yeah, only like 2 years at that point.
Yeah.
Or a year. But
actually, Triple H wasn't even part of that either.
He was hurt.
Yeah.
He was out.
Yeah.
I do think it like from my perception, it did kind of hurt it because they didn't have Hogan or Nash or Hall. And they're like the Eric Bischoff too. Ooh, sorry. But then Eric Bischoff eventually shows up. Was it 2003, 4? I think it was 2003, where they announced Eric Bischoff as the general manager. That was probably crazy for people seeing that.
I remember seeing that as a kid, like live. And I just remember like not believing anything going on anymore.
like WCW was actually never sold and they were just like behind it the whole time. Like that like him shaking his hand and then becoming the Raw general manager, I think it was like 2.5 years. I mean, that was good TV. And the way that I like when it was actually split brands with like Stephanie McMahon and then Eric Bischoff. That was like I really enjoyed that era of TV for WWE. But yeah, I think when it comes to the WCW documentary, the Who Killed WCW documentary, it did a lot of stuff well. It was well produced. The stuff that was kind of new were the interactions with the executive producers and those discussions, which were interesting. But there was also some retread that you kind of heard from like the WWE documentaries. And that's like the Vince Russo commentary and Eric Bischoff getting into WCW and how that started. And the finger poke of doom and that kind of stuff. I totally forgot about that blood hitting like to the right of Kevin Nash. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, that's pretty bad too.
Didn't they try it like twice or some shit?
Yes, I'm pretty sure.
So. Yeah. And each time it was failed.
Here's a question: When did Eric Bischoff start going gray? Because like at one moment he's got black hair, and then like
Guys is here.
specifically in WWE.
WCW, he had gray hair.
Did he? And then he
did,
just
yeah.
dyed it, and then he's like, I'm a
Yeah.
diet.
He just died.
Went
Yeah.
back to Ken doll.
Interesting. That's the real
Yeah.
question.
That was a
Real
good
stuff that
time though
keeps
when
you
he
up.
came to WCW as like an active like general manager. Like I did enjoy that because then when he got paired up with Stone Cold for a while too, right?
And Stone Cold would just like they would just like piss each other off,
Yeah,
like
that was a good
reversing
time.
their own calls and all that.
Yeah, that was good shit. And this is our next segment is kind of around that era with John Cena, who debuted in 2002, and for over 20 years he's been on our television screens, and a good chunk of it people gave him crap for, called him Super Cena. But now in 2024 we we hear the news of his retirement, and he announced it that he's officially retiring, and I have a feeling like he's actually gonna follow with it. I don't think he's gonna pull a Ric Flair, and it's gonna be a year-long thing. It's not gonna be like a one-off
We're
the
losing
Sting
it, man.
match or Ric Flair and his 3 retirement specific matches. It's going to be an entire year-long retirement thing. So I wanted to dedicate this segment to John Cena, the wrestler, the retirement tour, and kind of start from there. I mean, what do you guys think about John Cena as like a wrestler, as a person? Like now that we're kind of like basically kind of forced to acknowledge that his end is coming in a year, and we've had a number of opinions and thoughts about him over him when I was watching wrestling, like, you know, like little Jimmy. What do you guys think of John Cena?
I think the
What?
way he did
Nah.
it is very.
What?
What?
Sorry.
I don't know. I think it's very him to do it the way he did it too. Like I think he's pretty much straight to the point about it. You know, like this is when I'm gonna go. This is how I'm doing it, and that's it. Like I don't think there's gonna, like you said, I don't think he's gonna pull like a Ric Flair or anything like that. He's never really seemed to be that kind of guy. But him to like let you know when the end is coming and where it's coming, I kind of like that. It's a little different than like other retirements. It's kind of like usually people being like, yeah, I think my time is coming up. I just don't know when. But for him to give us like an actual layout, I don't know. It just felt like something he would do. It was very him, and it's actually really like genuine too. It feels really. It felt like nice. Like okay, like it's sad, and I've always been a fan of his. I've known throughout his career, like he's always been like known to be like one of the more generous guys in the wrestling business. You know.
Yep.
Obviously, still had haters along with that still too, but no, it felt very fitting
at
for him.
least.
Like this is me, this is where I'm going. Yeah, this is me, this is when I'm going, and then but how we get there, we're gonna do this like together as the WWE universe. So I'm very intrigued to see it. You know?
His time is up. His time is now. I'm not gonna front. I was a John Cena hater for a very long time. Because I mean, I think it was just how he was booked. More specifically, right after Chain Gang Cena, when he started to have the multicolored shirts and all that shit, and he was like, you know, the PG era kid friendly guy. Like, what were we, like early teens or late teens when he started doing all that shit? And
we did 06. That was basically still Chain Gang John Cena, and then 06, 07.
It was whenever they changed the FU to the AA. That's when
Yeah. But then when he started having like every color of the, he changed it.
What? No.
Oh my god. But, okay, so what do you think? So you talked about, you know, you hated John Cena.
Yep. And I found myself. I mean, as did a lot of people, like the hardcore fans, and now it's just funny that everybody turns around because, again, wrestling fans are fucking fickle. Like they hate Roman Reigns, fickle, and now everybody loves it. He's gone. We want him. Now everybody loves John Cena, and he was my childhood, and this and that. But I bet you fucking money that those same motherfuckers were shitting on him, and maybe not, but I would say there's definitely a percentage that were like
about
me.
85.
Yeah. Because
think about that. Like 15 years ago was like 2009 or 8. You know, do you know what that means? A kid was born and now he's a teenager. Right now, he's 15 or 16 years old. So I would also tell you that a lot of the people in the current audience were those little toddlers and 6, 7-year-olds who liked John Cena, and now they're in their late
right
who are watching WWE. So it's like Hulk Hogan or The Rock in his current form, you know, announcing retirement, you know, and yeah, I mean, like for us, it's also like peak. Like that's kind of like our Hogan, because John Cena, when he hit like his peak, got the championship like 05 or 05, 06, 07, when he was like going up like this. We were 13, 14, like that's like peak like teenagers like watching wrestling stuff. And then you basically see his entire career up until now. I mean, I'll say this. I was part of the Cena suck stuff, but I was looking at it from, I mean, it wasn't, and I don't know, I don't think you legitimately hated him. You probably just hated his booking, right? You didn't like hate, I hate that son of a bitch, like personally.
I hate his face.
No.
So, I mean, it's like the fun to boo him kind of stuff. And that's kind of where I came from, because, you know, when he won a match, I was like, it feels like CM Punk, John Cena. Yeah, exactly. Like that. It's like, that guy. Kind of like laughing about it. And I still liked him as a person. I don't think anyone can hate John Cena, especially like if you're thinking about like Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I mean, everything that guy was wrestling 24/7 consistently. And you know, dealing with cancer kids when he was done wrestling, and then being on the road consistently. So, I mean, when he announced his retirement, I was at like when I rewatched the Money in the Bank event and he was talking, I was actually getting a little emotional, because it does feel like, because you see him like you got the, you know, the wrinkles on your face. He's John's outfit. He's announcing his retirement and he's doing this whole speech about how it's his last year, and it's just kind of gives you pause. I mean, it partially kind of, you know, it kind of like acknowledge your mortality, because you see this person who's been around on your TV for 15 or 16 years. And then you see that this like symbol, this person is saying that they're basically finishing this constant in your life that's in your routine, is very, and it's just a very like impactful. You know, so the fact that, you know, you have this, like, I feel like I'd like to see my pennies and see him one last time. And you know, there's going to be a Chicago show, because Chicago is one of his favorite towns. And goddamn, I bet you they might even John Cena ring in Chicago. That'd be crazy. Because if you had to give me my favorite John Cena match, it'd be Punk John Cena Money in the Bank 2011, because that was like if I wanted to capture that feeling in a bottle of like what a wrestling show is, I'd be a billionaire, because that shit was like top tier, like emotions, the top to bottom like show, but that specific match was just so good, and the crowd and everything was. And then he wins, or John Cena loses, and then he goes off with the belt. Like all of that was perfection. And then, you know, they kind of fumbled a little bit.
And then he ruined Rey Mysterio.
Hey, yeah. I mean, I wasn't gonna say, but that specific like leading up.
That's the John I remember.
And then right after, Yeah, exactly. Him being involved in those kind of things made people hate him.
Or Zack Ryder. That's the John I remember. Taking his girl and then letting him get thrown
flowers
off
and the
his
neck
stage.
brace. Was it Eva Marie, I think? Or Eve Torres. Eve Torres
Yeah.
was,
I hope
think,
you're lying there as uncomfortably as possible.
when he was sitting there.
Well, no, when he was knocked out through the table and Punk cut that
The
promo.
pipe bomb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Iconic. But yeah, I mean, yeah, John Cena's tour announcement. I mean, he had the 5 moves of doom and people were giving him crap for it, but you know, he's not doing anything different that The Rock did, that Hulk Hogan did, Stone Cold Steve Austin even. Randy Orton, he's got his own 5 moves.
But he's cool, though.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. What about you guys? Like, favorite John Cena matches, most memorable? If you guys had to pick one or two, what would you pick as a favorite John Cena match? You know mine, because I got another one.
I liked all the Edge feuds. The Edge feud stuff was cool. The rated RKO and all that shit. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Or was that DX? I forget. It might have been DX.
Well, it was rated RKO versus DX, but Edge also had a big feud with John Cena because then he had the rated R spinner belt and that whole thing, Live Sucks Celebration, New Year's Revolution, all that kind of stuff. Like, that was the John Cena feud. At the TLC match, I think in Canada, like that was like around the start, that was a really good match. And yeah, definitely one of his best feuds was with Edge. Too bad in AEW. That'd be great to see them go toe to toe.
I personally enjoyed, because he's also one of my other favorite wrestlers, but when he actually tagged with Shawn Michaels for a little while there, I kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Like the like, thank God, like Triple. I mean, not necessarily thank God, like he tore his quad, but like when he tore his quad during that DX feud, and then they basically switched Blade like 2 to Shawn Michaels. That was a really good match. And what are you guys just zooming in on each other, just laughing?
You're cutting off.
Are you serious?
Yeah, your microphone still.
That's fine.
Oh my God.
That's fine.
Oh my God.
Oh, is that why your eyebrows raise every time?
Because
I keep cutting off.
it'd be like a sentence, and then it'd be like a key point, and I'm like, huh?
Oh man!
I mean,
don't tell me it's most of the podcast.
Well, it's like mostly good. That's fine.
Okay.
People will
mostly
suffer
good,
through
but
this. We'll figure
Yeah,
it
well,
out.
I hope your recording picks it up, but maybe not. But yeah, I think the John Cena Edge feud, and then Shawn Michaels versus John Cena at WrestleMania 23 was really good. And that they had that 1 hour like Iron Man match, or that 1 hour match on Raw. That was like one of the best matches in Raw history. That was really good. So another great feud. And I feel like people don't give him enough credit because they kind of just plastered him as just kind of that top guy who sells T-shirts, but they don't necessarily tie him in with like Daniel Bryan or whatever, indie darling wrestler, when it comes to like matches. And I feel like that does a disservice to him when it comes to his wrestling style. But I mean, what do you guys feel about we talked about some of the feuds. Were there any other matches or people that he interacted with that you guys felt like stuck out to you during those 15 years? AJ Styles?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good.
And he kept losing.
Yeah. And right now, John Cena's on a losing streak.
Well, I mean that in the sense of like that was at a time when like Cena was getting out of the Super Cena phase.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it did a lot for AJ Styles for Cena to be able to lose to him even clean a couple times.
Right. I mean, I feel like, well, I'm just double checking, making sure it's like on the right setting. I don't know what it is.
Mm.
But yeah, I feel like, yeah, I mean, John Cena, I mean, the Bray Wyatt stuff, I have a mixed feelings about it, but given the situation with like the COVID and stuff, I thought it was actually an interesting match. I don't know, Chris, have you seen that match that they did at the Firefly Funhouse match? I thought that was pretty innovative.
Oh, I saw like clips of it where it's like it's like more cinematic or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, David, when you watched it?
My first thought was, what the hell did I just watch? But like in a good way, in a good way. And yeah, I thought it was, I guess it was fitting. I would like to have seen them have like a regular match just because of the way the Fiend was handling things around them.
Yeah.
But I guess it was good closure in a way, especially
What about
just like all the little like side scenes that they picked, like the heel turn and things like that.
yeah? So actually, that's a good segue because I want you guys to tell me, do you feel like having him turn heel was a missed opportunity? I mean, he was a heel at the beginning of his career and then basically became a face and never really changed since. But do you feel like turning him heel in those 15 years plus that he was, that shirt seller, do you feel like it's a missed opportunity, or do you feel like they did the right decision?
Now that it's said and done, I guess I'm just more curious what that timeline would have been. But I don't know. His career has pretty much just been straightforward, really. And I think I kind of appreciate that because a lot of people's careers, when they get to the end, they've had many of heel turns, many of face changes. Factions too. Cena kind of was just pretty just straight, just Cena the whole way. Yeah, he was a heel at the first, like you said, but after that, he pretty much stayed consistent.
He had the C Nation. He didn't need a group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, he always felt like a final boss anytime he would do, whoever he would be feuding with. Like, that's why you would sometimes just want to cheer the other guy in his matches because he always was this unstoppable guy, more or less. So it's like, come on, beat his ass or whatever, right? Because you're sick of this guy winning all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cena wins.
yeah, haha, Cena wins, lol.
I do remember in Chicago, there was that one fight he had with Brock Lesnar. I forgot what pay-per-view that was. A long time ago. But like it was like a strap match, and then you had to hit like the corner lights and the turnbuckles. It was kind of interesting. I forgot how that worked.
Is that his first time of Brock Lesnar, or are you talking about when he returned 12?
Yeah, when he returned 2012. Yeah, I think it was that one because the pay-per-view was definitely here.
It might have been like an Extreme Rules match, but I don't know if it was. It might have been a strap match. I do remember like Brock like beating the shit out of him.
He did, but Cena still won though.
Yeah.
He did it AA to him on the staircase, like he
had
brought it
him
up.
bleed.
Yeah, and the whole crowd was very anti-Cena in Chicago that night for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it was partially also because like, well, it's Brock Lesnar. He wasn't there for that must have been like what, almost 10 years, something like that.
This was a while ago. The Nexus was still around at this point when I saw this pay-per-view.
Yeah. So he left in 04, and then he came back 2012. So yeah, I mean, it's almost a decade. So I mean, people are just excited to see Brock Lesnar. And again, at that point, John Cena has been at the top for the better part of 7 or 8 years. Now, what do you guys do? You feel like he was preventing people? I don't know. He's preventing people. I mean, it's not like he's necessarily one citing it. I mean, it's Vince McMahon at the end of the day. But do you feel like there were people on the roster that could match his star power? Because that era, I mean, like we look at it now, and you have Roman Reigns, and like in his current aura, you have Cody Rhodes. I mean, you have people like AJ Styles and Randy Orton. And I feel like this is kind of a different era where you didn't necessarily rely on like the one person to carry you. But I felt like from 2000 2007 to like 2015 or 16, it felt like you needed John Cena because that was like the top guy. You know what I mean? Like he was like the breadwinner. And that's I don't get that now with the current roster, but it did feel like he was kind of holding everything together. Do you guys feel that same way, or do you feel like there were other people on the roster during that time that could have done the same job?
I mean, he's the only one that killed Osama bin Laden, so
He did. I remember that vividly.
we got
My
him.
friends. Yeah, he
Good.
said we got him.
I'd say there were other superstars that were definitely coming up in the ranks, and definitely the WWE Universe was showing a big interest in them while he was still probably around that time period that you were saying.
Mhm.
But Cena also played the part of like not, or more the part of like agreeing with the audience and saying like, you know, he would, like Daniel Bryan was one of them. I remember like he was very much like in favor of him like main
2013.
eventing stuff. Yeah.
The prototype.
Prototype.
Cena, yeah.
But I think it would have felt, yeah, I think he was necessarily to be that. But other guys definitely could have done the role that he did, like he did. I don't know. Especially Meta, I don't know. Not to say that they couldn't, but I don't know. I mean, that's why the rivalry was so good, because he was like kind of sounding like he wanted to be that guy, but in his own right. I don't know. That's why it worked so well, because he was like the anti-Cena, you know?
Right.
So
I mean, he spoke with conviction. Like his promos always felt like they hit, even now, obviously. And I feel like he brought up everybody else more or less when he would feud with them. So even though like people would hate on him, but it's like his capability and capacity as a performer made everybody else kind of look better in that sense, despite, you know, what people thought of him being the guy who's always winning, predictable kind of shit, right? But
Yeah.
you know, just looking back at it, you know, he did a lot as far as just like keeping that specific era of WWE more or less afloat.
Yeah.
yeah, the more I look at it now, the more I agree, because like he was the face of the company. And if you don't have the face of the company there doing what he does, I don't think it would have been the same.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, this next year will be very interesting to see, you know, how his character is in this kind of current version of WWE. I mean, I think that there might be a bit more freedom as far as what he can say or do, or, you know, he was saying, I think during the press conference, that you'll probably see a different side of him versus, you know, what you expect out of him in those specific, you know.
Well, because he's not going to be giving like those standard like baby face stuff. Like he did have convictions, but I also felt like he still had to kind of go between the lines, with the exception of maybe that Rock Cena feud, which another one that we forgot, Rock Cena. Like those back-to-back matches, like that whole feud was great and was actually legitimately heated between the two. During its first match, I think during the second one they were better, but I mean that stuff got heated when like Cena was calling out The Rock for like writing on his wrist, because you could like pause the frame and then you saw that, you know, The Rock had like something written down on his wrist. I think Cena came back during because Rock had the Rock concert, and then Cena came in as like, you know, word life rapper gimmick, like he wore the whole chain and everything, and did basically like a diss rap on Rock, and that was really good. But yeah, I mean, I do feel like with the exception of like CM Punk and then Daniel Bryan, I still feel like John Cena was still that kind of person, that constant, like that's the guy who's moving merchandise and that kind of stuff consistently. You know, whether you like him or you hate him, because he always got a reaction. Like if you hated him, you gave him a reaction. If you loved him, he got cheers. And, you know, there was that big period of, you know, women and children were screaming, and then Cena sucks was like all the guys. And again, I think it no one hated him, but it was that kind of feeling of the regime, like the basically. I feel like John Cena was at the top longer than Hogan, Rock, or Stone Cold was. Like he was at the top for like a decade. Hogan was in like the modern WWF, like rock and wrestling and stuff. I think John Cena was like the longest on top for like a good 15 years.
True.
But yeah, but that also kind of shows like the longevity you had and the talent you have to be at that top, you know, and keep moving merchandise for as long as you did. Like Hogan did not do that.
Fruity Pebble.
Yeah, exactly. Fruity Pebbles. So yeah, I mean, I'm also going to be interested in seeing what they do with this retirement tour, and that's what makes it so intriguing, because you know it's the end, and they could really have it go anywhere, and
He's gonna be champ one more time. He's got to beat Ric Flair.
Oh, okay. So yeah, let's talk about that. Do you feel like he should be a 17-time?
Oh yeah,
world champion and beat Ric Flair?
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna say yes.
I'm gonna say yes too.
I'm gonna say fuck Ric Flair.
Go ahead and give it to him.
Ric Flair.
Yeah.
The record's been around for long enough. The only person who can do it should be him.
Yeah, I mean, John Cena, I mean, deserves it. And I mean, someone asked, like, "Oh, do you think he's going to be in the Hall?" If he's not going in the Hall of Fame, who? He's an obvious first choice.
Cussing hard as hell. Your mic's like, "Fuck you, bitch." You bitch.
No. Is it cutting off when I'm like this close too?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's probably a noise gate issue. I don't know if you messed with your noise gate or something.
No, I haven't. Maybe it's like, I don't even know.
Do you have
And
anything else open that might be taking in your voice?
I don't know, but I'll just look at it later. But I guess you can keep in the bleeps and blurps.
I mean, there's no way around it. It'd be like cutting up the whole motherfucker.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like he should beat the record and be 17-0. And I don't know if I don't think he'll be in the Hall of Fame next year, but do you guys feel differently? Do you think he will be inducted next year?
Yeah, I think it's all part of it. It's the cherry on top. He gets inducted. He goes off in the sunset. He's champion. He retires the belt. Some shit like that.
So let's go back to that retire. Who do you want him to face during that tour?
Either Punk or Rock.
Well, it's gonna be more than that. I don't think he's just gonna be. Yeah, I feel like he's gonna do like a greatest hits tour, kind of like in Like a Dragon. Like he's revisiting all the people seen and fought people. So I feel like you can do the same thing. Yeah, I mean, like I'm not Triple H, but probably like Randy Orton. I'd like to see him do like current people. So Cody Rhodes. I mean,
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton. I don't think Triple H is coming out of retirement for that one, so that's out of the question. I wish like Edge can just come back, like Tony Khan just let him, but I doubt that he would do that. Who else?
Wade Barrett.
Wade Barrett, honestly, I thought like there was something going to happen with him and Drew McIntyre to get him back in the ring, but I don't know if it's like a medical thing. That's why he's out and he's just doing commentary, but that would be interesting. I don't think it's going to happen though.
Matt Cardona.
See, yeah, I'd like to see that happen too, because they're both in different parts of their career, and Matt Cardona has obviously gotten much more experienced than just the woo guy.
Edgehead.
But I would like to hear the O Radio theme song one time. He's gonna come out with that stupid like headband with like the hair that's attached to it, as that was the merchandise, and they had like a picture with John Cena wearing that stuff.
Woo. Woo. Hell yeah.
Cena never wrestled Stone Cold, right? Ever?
Uh,
Or even took a stunner? Can't recall.
I don't know. I feel like he must have taken one stunner.
Yeah, I feel like that at least that. But even that I can't recall.
It's gonna be Roman versus Cena.
Ooh, that's another one.
That would be good.
like to
That would be
see.
good.
But I would like them to run back Rock Cena, CM Punk Cena. If we were going back to like the original guys, I think both would do
Orton.
gangbusters. Orton, yeah. I'm trying to
Do the
think of like
hometown
other
run
new
for
guys.
everybody from their hometown. Punk will be in Chicago, or he'll be wherever he's from.
Oh, the new guys?
Yeah.
I want to see Braun Breaker fucking break him in half.
Yeah. That's a good one. Braun Breaker. I want to see
Gunther.
Gunther versus John Cena. That'd be really good. Um,
Rey Mysterio.
One more
Rey
time.
Mysterio, you can run that back.
Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah, Dominic is going to be the first sacrificial lamb for John Cena at the altar of the god John Cena. That's who's going under the knife first. Like in January, like probably like the first Raw on Netflix. It's going to be
Plunge
John
that
Cena
shit.
versus Dominic Mysterio, which
yeah.
that's going to be entertaining as hell. And you know what I think it is? I think it's my internet connection for whatever reason, because I'm seeing like the video connected. So it's like some red, some
Yeah,
I
damn
don't know what's
internet.
going on there.
Were you in a third world country?
Yeah, I got gigabit internet from Xfinity. Like, why would it be doing that? But whatever. So yeah. Any other feuds? Any other people before we kind of wrap this up?
Balor. The Wyatt Six.
Oh yeah. That'd be good because he has that connection to Bray Wyatt. So having Bo Dallas or whatever they're going to call him now, I don't think he's going to be called Uncle Howdy consistently.
You got to bring back the crew cut one more time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think he should
He's got to get that barber shit in the back of his head.
hit all the beats.
I mean, like do the word life shit, do the fucking chain gang, all of it. Just like the Sting retirement where he had his sons out, and then you had Surfer Sting and fucking Wolfpack Sting. Hell yeah!
I think Wolfpack Sting is actually going to wrestling school now.
Yep, sure is.
One of them.
Bring him back to the E.
I mean, he looks like a spitting image of Steve Borden, man. It's crazy.
That'd be cool. Although they'd probably put him in AEW, but all right. So you know what? One last question before we wrap this up. Is would you put John Cena on your Mount Rushmore of wrestlers? And it doesn't have to be for it. Let's say it's top 5. Do you feel like he's up there?
Nope.
Why or why not?
You said
Nope.
I would.
I would too.
Well, for me, I didn't really watch his peak.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I know that's kind of like where you kind of stopped for a bit.
I would say if I had to put a timeline on my wrestling, it would be 97 to 07 and then 2013 and to now.
Yeah, I mean, you got a good taste of John Cena then,
Yeah.
you know.
But
So that's fair. I mean, I don't know if he's necessarily. I mean, it's kind of hard. I feel like
He's up
he
there.
has to be. I feel like he has to be for me. If I had to be super objective about it,
Yeah.
just based on, I mean, everything, like all the feuds that I've witnessed, and again, just like the person he is and the amount of work and dedication he put in. If I had to be objective, I think I would put him up there. Like, I'd rather him be up there than Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair, personally. So yeah.
Damn.
yeah, he should be up there above at least Hogan.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I mean, honestly,
sorry, brother.
sorry, doesn't work for me, brother. You're off my.
I like
Mount
what Triple
Rushmore.
H said because when they did the press conference after he announced his retirement, Triple H said there would be a Mount Rushmore. I personally feel it's what Triple H said, that he would be at the top. Because when you talk about like a workhorse, you know, John Cena was up there basically.
I'd put Triple H on there.
I don't know if I put Triple H on there. Yeah.
Maybe Sean. I'll do
There's
Sean.
a lot of top people. I mean, it's hard, but
Bret Hart.
I don't know. That you know what? That's gonna be our next episode. We're gonna have a segment of
What?
it's doing it again.
That bitter ass Canadian. No, I'm guessing you said something about Mount Rushmore and who's
I was saying like on our next thing, it's got to be the internet because my face is right here on the microphone. But I was saying for the next episode, I might have a segment of what everyone's Mount Rushmore is and why, and then we'll just kind of talk about it. So
that's 5 people, right? 5.
Oh no, everyone's gonna hate me.
I'm gonna
bring it on, baby.
Yeah, let's stick it to 5. Let's stick it to 5 because I feel like that'll be easier. I don't want to say 10, or do you feel like 10 would be easier? But that 10 almost feels like it's copping out. 4? Nah.
3.
Yeah, let's do top 3. Now let's do top 5. We'll do top 5.
I'll go with 5.
All right, that's great, and I'm gonna end it here. Hopefully, I could out without going blank. So that's a wrap for this episode of the Chi-Town Shoot podcast. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, rate us, and leave your feedback. Tune in next time for more wrestling madness. Until then, keep marking out.